Investors are seeing red right now. I'm sure you're aware. If you look at the markets overall, it has been a bloodbath, no doubt. I want to talk about a few things to make sure you're aware of what's happening today. The first thing I want to look at is smashed. What's been going on? I'll give you the details surrounding that so that you are aware to make those informed decisions. The second thing is what to look out for. This is extremely important because if you're not sure, you're just going to be relying on somebody else, and you never want that to happen. You want to have the knowledge. Let's begin. Here you can see, seeing red. Shopify, Roblox, Block, Moderna, Zoom, Netflix, all of these stocks punished since the beginning of this year. It has been like we've never seen before, at least up until this moment. These stocks here are all of the names that previously, just a year ago, we were saying, oh, these are going to be the future. Their stocks will go up for eternity. Buy every little dip. There wasn't a dip, but they would say that every single time the stock came down a half a point. So you look at this as an example of what could happen and what to watch out for, because nothing ever goes up in a straight line. That's something we need to be aware of. It is so key, so important to understand, but yet most people don't get it. Look at what's happening with Bitcoin right now. You could see this as a barometer for risk. That's the way I have always looked at it. I've mentioned that many times before, because this is an absolute risk on move. When you look at where the money is coming from, the big money, the institutions, very different than the average investor putting their money into Bitcoin. Think about it. Somebody is buying $10,000 of Bitcoin, $50,000, $100,000 of Bitcoin. And then you've got an institution that's holding a bunch of different assets in their portfolio. Maybe they've got some Apple, maybe they've got Amazon, maybe they've got Walmart and all of these different things, and maybe they've got some Bitcoin too. If they're looking at this, where are they going to sell off first? Well, I can show you, I'll give you some data in later videos to make it very clear that investors, big money, not the little guy, but the big money has been selling out. Why? Because they don't care if Bitcoin does good or not. They're trying to make money for their investors. They're trying to pump up their assets under management at the same time. And if they think that Bitcoin is not going to be doing well over the next little while, they're just going to sell. They use their little technical analysis and they try to make good decisions, and we see what happens. And many hedge funds end up going bankrupt, and you watch that over time. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that we are getting brutally beaten down in where there is risk. Okay. All of these different things, no matter what they told you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, you've got people out there, whether it is coming from the mainstream or whether it's coming from the so-called alternative, they're just saying, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, always buy, this can't go down. And they're using the same mentality that they did 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 5 and 10 and 20. It doesn't matter when you see a strategy that is impossible to move. I'm just dollar cost averaging. It doesn't always work. Okay. You could be doing a much better service to the capital you're deploying if you do things more strategically. I got to watch out. Can't give financial advice. Other channels will do that for you. The SPAC ship is sinking. Investors want their money back. Look, this was so big. So big. Anything with the word SPAC attached to it suddenly attracted billions and billions of dollars. There's a lot in here. They call them the blank check companies for a reason. This is the performance since the end of 2020. Looking at the Russell, hasn't done well, right? Small caps. These are the type of investments where there's certainly a higher risk associated with it. But you can see that it's basically flat. And you go down. SPAC ETF, DraftKings, QuantumScape. These things are beaten down severely. And yet there was a time in which they were saying, this is a buy, oh, I'm getting in. You've got to be careful where you're putting your money. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not this mentality of, hey, we're all doing this together, everyone, let's get in there. No, you've got to realize that things happen and people ultimately can be slaughtered. You don't think of this because, when there's that herd mentality, it often masks what's happening. They gave you some more examples in here, SPAC deals and so on. I think you get the point. Now you've got this. I thought it was interesting because Bezos loses $20 billion in a brutal week for tech billionaires. Now, nobody's shedding a tear for Jeff Bezos losing $20 billion, I assure you. But I was thinking at this point here, if you're in the markets right now, if you've got any investment, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's stocks, real estate, what have you, and it comes down and you lose 10,000, you lose 200,000, whatever it might be, whatever that number is to you. Imagine losing 20 billion. It doesn't matter if you've got 200 billion. If you lose $20 billion, that hurts. That must hurt. And I want to know what you think. Forget about the Bezos and, the rich people and so on, the mega wealthy. I just want to know your opinion. If you were to lose $20 billion, you saw your net worth, would you be looking at that? Would you be looking at your net worth going down, the stock going down every day? I'm just curious what you think. Morgan Stanley's Sliman warns against buying growth stock dip. If you see what's been happening with the growth stocks, it is painful to say the least. This is the NASDAQ represented by the QQQ. And just take a look. I've been showing this all throughout, okay? Essentially since early November, I showed you chopping up and down, up and down, up and down. And meanwhile, buy the dip, I saw that. And, it is not a good idea to go with the herd. Right now, the market, we need to be very clear, and I've said this before, it is very oversold on a technical level. You see, if you look at this is the stock RSI indicator. It moved from a place of being overbought down to a place of being oversold, and we still haven't made that move upward. You could look at this on the RSI, which I show you at the bottom here, looking at a point in which hasn't been like this since March 2020, okay? You can see that. We have not fallen this low. Let me see if I can pull that back. It says 2021. And there we go, March 2020. So on the RSI, we haven't seen that. Now, of course, the market has moved up considerably since then, but it just gives you the sentiment. It just gives you an idea of what's happening. And you see it being applied first to risk assets. So you're going to see it in things that are like SPACs, and you're going to see it coming from Bitcoin, and you're going to see that coming from the Russell, small caps. But then it goes into what was, part of the NASDAQ, and you look at these different stocks that maybe didn't have much there, but they were going to be the next hot thing, and suddenly investors woke up to that fact. That's what I've been trying to highlight the whole time. I hope I've done right to you as my viewer over the period, just to make sure people are aware of that. When, I'm talking about SPACs and sharing that all throughout 2020 into 2021, now you see what happens, because that growth isn't inevitable. It is a cycle. I'm not saying that SPACs are bad necessarily and inherently. It just means that where there's euphoria, it tends to swing back the other way, the mean reversion. Once the fever breaks, it lasts a long time. When the bubble breaks, it's not a V bottom as many look to get out. And he makes a good point in here, okay? This is just, there's a lot. I'm not going to get into the whole interview. You wrote to us before the show saying, avoid temptation to step in and to buy into the sell-off in high growth stocks. Once the fever breaks, it's done for quite a while. Of course. Doesn't he make a good point? And that connects in with something I'll talk about in a second here. Look at the bubble baskets, year-over-year change in the Fed balance sheet, directly correlated. How many times do I have to see this? I just saw, or heard, I should say, a podcast with 3 young YouTubers. All right. I want to say, and whatever. Anyway, the point is they're highlighting all of the things that Bloomberg articles and CNBC articles would touch on. And yet this wasn't a factor. This wasn't even brought up. How can this be avoided? This is the only thing that matters. The Fed's balance sheet and the interest rates are the absolute key. Now, does it mean that the Federal Reserve is literally, they print money to buy the stocks? Well, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But This is the key because the more liquidity there is, the more it gets sloshed around and buys up different assets. Now, Novogratz in this tweet, he's mentioning Bitcoin and so on, ETH, but what he says at the bottom here is what I really wanted to talk about. This will be a year where people realize being an investor is a difficult job. And the average retail investor that bought in from after the financial crisis hasn't had to deal with any pain. There was a brief dip in March, early 2020, I should say, and that's it. One little dip in this entire time. He makes a very good point. Not as it relates to cryptos. I'm talking about in general. Then there's this. Is Bitcoin a 24/7 VIX? And that's all I wanted to highlight from this. Simply showing us that it is a barometer of risk, of volatility. Look at what's happening right now. I mean, I just showed you that. It's getting absolutely slaughtered. It's getting slaughtered right now in a time in which, hey, there's this talk of risk off. Look at it. These are the daily candles, which of course it's a 24-hour thing. But the point is, it's way oversold. You look at it on pretty much every single indicator. Does that mean it's going to come up though? I think we're going to have serious volatility from now until the Federal Reserve comes out, at least until this meeting, which we will get that information this week. Okay, you're watching this video now. This week is really key to pay attention. You better watch these videos here, okay? So stay tuned to me. I promise you, I'll tell you some good stuff. I'll give you up-to-date information. Strong likeness. Bitcoin and ARK have moved in tandem. It's not just these two, but watch the correlation between risk assets and those riskier type stocks. They don't need to necessarily have to own it. You see the ebbs and flows of the markets. And then I just want to finish with this. I made this video January 20th, 2019. Okay, it's been a couple years. And I made this after basically explaining what I say in this video hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over the previous years. I just got tired of doing that. I said, okay, I'm going to make a 60-second video and then I can just reference it after. And I've referenced it hundreds of times since. How the global economic collapse will happen, explained in 30 seconds. That's the title of the video. It is literally 60 seconds long. Coincidentally, I got it down to 60 seconds perfectly. Essentially just highlighting what you see on the screen, that the global central bank balance sheets are directly correlated with the performance of the stock market. And I said, if they start to print less money, stocks can slow down, they can go down. If they print more money, stocks can go up. I literally said that, confirmed in black and white to everybody that was watching this video. And you could see this video has been there since, this is 3 years old. It only has 27, that's a lot of views, I guess, in a sense, but only because I've referenced it so many times since. 27,000 views. If people would have watched this and realized, the whole game would have been changed for a lot of people just to understand the way that this works. All right, I'm not going to go on anymore. I hope that you will be aware of what's happening on a more deeper level. I'm trying to do my best here on the channel. I hope you appreciate that. If you do, all you got to do is hit that thumbs up button. That's all I ask for. It's right down there. Check out this video, and all the other links, if you want, are in the description under the sources. If you haven't seen this video yet, you definitely want to check it out. All right, click it, and I'll see you there.